Hey everybody, we're back. Today we're going to create a set of radio buttons. Radio buttons are basically just inputs where only one can be selected and not many can be selected. It makes more sense once we're complete. You can use radio buttons for questions where you want the user to only give you one answer out of multiple options. Radio buttons are a type of input. Each of your radio buttons can be nested within its own label element. By wrapping input elements inside a label element, it will automatically associate the radio button input with the label element surrounding it. All related radio buttons should have the same name attribute to create a radio button group. By creating a radio button group, selecting any single radio button will automatically deselect the other buttons within the same group, ensuring only one answer is provided to the user. So they provide an example where they've got a label element, and inside of it is an input element that shows the format that they want to use for this exercise. It is considered best practice to set a for attribute on the label element with a value that matches the value of the ID of the attribute in the input element. This allows assistive technologies, meaning like technology that help people who are either blind or whatever using their computers, to create a linked relationship between the label and the child input, for example. And then in the example, they have another label that has the for element within the label and then inside of the input. So we're going to add a pair of radio buttons to the form. Where do we want to add it? I think it makes sense to add the radio elements in between the input button and the submit button, because that will make it so that it's within this form, and we need to add it within the form. One should have the option of indoor and the other should have the option of outdoor. Both should share the name attribute of indoor and outdoor to create a radio group. Okay, great. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started. We're going to make a label element for this one, and this is just the first one because we know that we're going to have to make two. But we make the label input, or the label element, and then we're going to do input, and then we're going to add the ID, which is, so this is going to be the indoor button. So we're going to make the indoor, the ID, because it's just said above that we want the ID to match the input, and that's just best practice. We're going to make it the type of a radio button, and the name is going to be, this is going to be the one that shares both ones. So we've got indoor, outdoor. And we're going to close that element. Now, because we want this to be specified with indoor, we might as well write the text in to the HTML as well, that this will be the indoor element. Okay, cool. And so now we're going to move on to the next element. We're going to want to create another label. And then on the input, we're going to make the ID equal to outdoor, because we're going to make it be the opposite of the other one. Now you notice how over here we haven't set the type, so it just defaulted to text input. And now watch, once we put the type of input that this radio button is, it'll add the submit, the little button there. Not the submit, but the button, the same one as the indoor. And then we want to make it so that these inputs are linked together, so we want them to be the indoor, outdoor elements. And then we can close that input element and then call it outdoor to match. But you notice how there's no space in between here, so it makes sense for us to come back and add a space and a capital I, and then for outdoor, and a space and a capital O, and that'll make the form look a little bit more professional. Now, I think that's it. Let's run the tests. Okay, great, we've passed. So once again, the great thing about these radio buttons, the reason that you use them, is because if you click the indoor one and the outdoor one independently, they switch back. And that gives you a certain functionality when you're creating interactive websites and web forms. Okay, thanks for watching. See you in the next lesson.